also in Sydney. Adam?
Hi, my name is Adam Vaziri. I'm a blockchain lawyer. I've been working as a blockchain lawyer for 4 years at least. And this year and the past year, I've been concentrating on building technical solutions to solve legal and regulatory issues in the blockchain. And one of the applications that I'm concentrating most of my efforts on at the moment is Blockpass, which is a self-sovereign identity solution for a regulated industry.
Yeah, and I myself, your moderator, I'm being the chairman of NextTech Group, the Technopinas, one of the leading digitalization group in Vietnam, and our group specializes in digitalizing things, in e-commerce, fintech, and e-logistics. And recently, our group is also moving quite many of our operations to blockchain platform, and one of our subsidiaries doing Vaziri, one of the KYC, digital KYC platform also in regular technology sector. So firstly, what is RegTech? So we are people, all the people and all the organizations has to comply with the laws, right? And if you don't comply with the law, we get fined. That is very simple rule. So according to statistics, after the 2008 recession, the banks in US, in America alone, has been fined more than 160 billion US dollar in fine, penalties, and settlement for non-compliance of regulation. The global demand for regulatory compliance and governance software is expected to reach $120 billion in 2020. And it's expected that close to 60% of that market will occur to consulting and business service. So this is a huge industry. We can call it as an industry of $100 billion industry. So the RegTech sounds like a very new concept to everyone, right? So firstly, let's make use of that first. Fanny, what is RegTech? What is RegTech? So can you give an overview of this industry with some specific example?
Yes. So RegTech is a way to enhance basically the regulatory monitoring, reporting, and compliance for companies as well as most stakeholders. So as you mentioned, the cost of compliance is quite expensive, quite high, both for industry and government. Annually, approximately, companies around the world pay in excess of 70 billion on compliance alone, and governments, those compliance systems in place don't seem to be as effective as they should. For instance, on money laundering, which I'm sure we'll touch on later also, only about 2% of money laundering worldwide is estimated to be caught through current systems. So RegTech can truly help decrease costs for companies through increased transparency, increased speed, and improve compliance to facilitate the job of governance. So RegTech has been focused initially on the financial sector. However, there are, through blockchain, many wider implications and applications to be used in different sectors. So to describe RegTech in a little bit more detail, I'll use two main examples. One in which RegTechs are benefiting companies in the financial industry, and one in which RegTech is benefiting governments in the trade and supply chain sectors in particular. So first in finance, the identity management processes offered by blockchain, especially through digital identities, holds many promises to decrease costs for companies. Currently, corporations have to comply with Know Your Customer, KYC regulations that are extremely costly. They have to compile data on their customers, both individual and companies, in extreme detail, and share that data in duplicated formats to various third parties, governments, and other agencies. Blockchain, by putting all of that data on a common ledger, which is transparent, decreases costs for these companies and improves the customer experience as they don't have to fill these numerous forms online. So this is one example. The second example in a sector other than finance, which shows the promise of RegTech beyond that sector, is in the trade and supply chain area. For the same reasons, blockchain basically would enable government to have access to sustainability information on companies as well as the origin of products throughout the blockchain without having to collect data, verify data, and send it to their exporting partners, which truly decreases costs for government and makes it very easier for them to gain that sustainability information. It also enables smaller firms to access export market more easily because they do not have to hire the legal teams to file the numerous documentation and send it to exporting countries in numerous formats.
Well, yeah, that is the perspective from the World Bank expert. Nico, what is your perspective on, some more example on regulatory technology example application in the world?
Look, I think that one of the things that compliance and regulation really struggles with is the fact that it's very reactive and it tends to be a very, very difficult thing to predict at the moment. If you have a means of recording transactions and decentralizing them in a way that they cannot be altered, you have the ability to mine that data, you have the ability to actually develop quite intelligent systems around it. So expert systems like artificial intelligence can actually learn from that data. It is complete, it is incorruptible, it is intact. So in terms of predicting fraud, predicting breaches, predicting hacks, that is, I think, a really, really good application of blockchain data. The other thing is once you get predictive in terms of your compliance and your compliance management, you actually liberate your compliance workforce to actually working with regulators, which is really, really important, and to take the lead and be far more assertive in terms of what the industry needs, as opposed to just reacting all the time and being on the back foot.
Okay, so Floyd, in order to give one more example, I know that you are working with a couple of regulators to apply blockchain technology for AML, anti-money laundering and transaction monitoring. So can you give some perspective on that as more clear example for all the audience, please?
Sure, and like Fanny mentioned, one of the big challenges today, even if you look at money laundering worldwide, less than 1 or 2% of all money laundered is actually tracked and caught, and that is again what you know, right? And I guess the regulators are faced with a couple of challenges here. Number one is, if you look at especially the emerging world and this part of the world, it is believed that there is more money laundered outside the country than the total money that's poured in by way of aid or whatever people like World Bank and IMF and things like that actually put into these countries. So how can you reduce that? But even in the emerging world, I think that's where regulators are saying 1%. Let's say we have a new technology that can even just double that 1%. It goes up to 2, 3, 4. But I think there's an opportunity to do a lot more here. So what we had is a regulator who said, hey, can you look at this new technology to see how can we monitor this transaction in a smarter and more elegant way. Today, you have a set of banks that have their AML systems which generate a suspicious transaction report, an STR. Each of this bank then sends a copy of this to the regulator, who then tries to patch it all together and make sense. What we suggested is, can you have a single system which each bank can upload its STRs onto a blockchain? You have a blockchain which then has which then uses smart contracts and inbuilt algorithms to automatically locate and identify a set of these transactions and start to monitor that. So a bank uploads a transaction, a set of transactions. The smart contract does three things. It writes it to the blockchain, alerts the incoming bank, so the incoming bank is now aware of some fraud, suspicious transaction coming its way, and the regulator is aware. Lastly, the biggest concern there was data. Each bank is not willing to share data and does not want to share its customers' data with other banks. And that's where blockchain plays a key role. It allows you to be in control of your data and yet alert an incoming bank and alert the regulator, who then has a complete overview of the ecosystem and a complete view of how money or suspicious money is flowing within a closed loop ecosystem. And so that's why we see the power of blockchain. Also as Nicole just mentioned, the immutability factor. Once it's written to the blockchain, it's written there forever. So if you upload in a transaction, there's no one that can go from a back door and try to erase it. If it's there, it's there. And so tomorrow the regulator can go back a year later, 3 years later, 5 years later, and still follow and trace and track the flow of money in an ecosystem over a period of time, and then use analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and a whole lot of other things.
It actually allows retrospective.
Correct. And once it's in there, it's in there. No one, and even where you have people trying to do an order system and things like that, no, you can't do it. And that is a native feature of the blockchain. It's not something that we built, and that's why it's such a powerful tool. It's a powerful tool in the hands of regulators to kind of tackle money laundering.
So thank you, Adam. So you're from UK, and I know that London is now being seen as one of the capital for regular technology, with many successful startups emerging from that. So from your perspective, how blockchain can improve the efficiency for regulatory compliance to stakeholders, including end user, service provider, and government authorities.
Well, the first point is, as Nicole says, and that's very insightful, the ability to predict a breach in advance this is where you can leverage blockchain and other tools such as machine learning. That is Regtech, and if you can really explore that technology and advance that technology, then you can be in a position where breaches, you can predict them in advance because of the way that you're analyzing that data. And yes, there are many data scientists in London. London has probably the most amount of AI PhD students than anywhere in the world applying their minds to that particular area. But the Regtech focus in London came from fintech focus. So that resulted from businesses that wanted to scale an operation, but were met with a number of barriers, and those barriers were regulatory barriers. If you weren't, to scale a fintech operation in the same way that Facebook scaled their communication application, you need to deal with regulation, which Facebook did not have to deal with. And so Regtech, in terms of that ecosystem built in London, was in order to enable fintech to scale much better. But from my point of view, what is the most interesting is inventing new ways of empowering people. And that is possible with blockchain. So for me, one of the key focuses of this year is about the privacy of the individual. New data protection laws are coming into place, and the collection of data is not going to be as easy as it was before with banks. AML laws, in fact, stipulate that you must collect data. And you collect the data for the purposes of conducting your risk management.
Keep it
forever, almost.
Yes.
But I think we're going to see a shift, and that shift, hopefully we'll explore it in Europe first because of GDPR, is that the user will be empowered, and the user will decide what data it wants to share, and decide what data it does not want to share, and will decide at what point it wants to delete its own data. And the service providers that interact in that new environment are the ones that will be creating the frameworks for the future. And blockchain is the only enabler of those type of interactions, because it's the only type of technology that can be transparent and anonymous at the same time.
Right. So Regtech will, help the organization and citizen to, stay more compliant with the government regulation. And, but I want to hear the opinion from Mr. Tu. From the government perspective, previously public sector data are the exclusive rights of the government authorities, and it is a black box to the outsiders. So the application, the blockchain technology in the future, with the Regtech, will make things transparent and completely integrity. So even government official cannot unreasonably modify. So what is the comfort level of the government to this fact of applying technology to make things a bit out of control for the governments?
At the moment, blockchain is the hot term now, not only in all over the world but also in Vietnam. And for our government now, the slogan for our government is the innovative government. That's why not only blockchain but Regtech and other fintech, VC, they are on the table of the government of Vietnam now. And that's why we are ready in the process of applying Regtech. However, I think that not only in Vietnam but also other countries, there are two main questions for the government. First, how does government use blockchain for government business? And second, how does government regulate industry using blockchains, including fintech or Regtech? That's why we are in the process. But of course, this is a very difficult process. And we need experience and we need cooperation between blockchain communities and international cooperation for this.
Right. So obviously, Mr. Tu, blockchain will make things easier and more transparent and help government a lot, right? In reducing the cost of compliance for the society. But actually, I see that the decision maker now is the government, because the government will have the right to say, okay, yes or no, whether the government will accept the application, the Regtech application or blockchain application or not, right? So let's say, take for example, one of our subsidiaries doing, digital KYC platform, right? But when we bring it to the banks, and the bank said that, okay, we have to bring, we like this solution. It has to cut costs a lot. But we have to bring this solution to the central bank, to the government authority to ask for permission. Right? And so, how do you see the changing legal environment to accommodate this kind of change? And what is the high-level direction from the Vietnamese government for this to accommodate this revolution?
Yes. One example is that peer-to-peer lending based on the blockchain technology is one issue that is discussing within the government of Vietnam now. And that's why we consider that in order to permit and to promote blockchain activities. However, I think that there are four main issues in order to create a good legal system for blockchain and Regtech in particular in Vietnam and maybe in other countries. The first one is that the legal system should promote and protect blockchain-based assets and permits the exchange of blockchain-based assets. Second, the legal system should enable and encourage companies to create blockchain-based protocols. Third one, the legal system should be transparent, simple, and predictable in order to protect customers and other stakeholders in the blockchain field. And finally, the government should review and re-examine all of the current laws and regulations in order to amend those which hinder the development or the implementation of blockchain-based commerce. If those four issues are taken into consideration and implemented in practice, in that case, the government will promote and very friendly to blockchain-based technology.
Wow, sounds like very encouraging to the blockchain community in Vietnam. Right, so I would like to take, just time start. I would like to take one question from the audience. One question? Okay, please.
One question.
Yeah.
Hello, I am a student and in the present I am researching about the P2P lending marketplace such as Lending Club or Prosper organization in the USA. I intend to apply blockchain smart contract technology into that platform. So I have a question that should we use which decentralized network to apply? Should it be public or private blockchain network? Because lending data is quite sensitive and it might need the law or government to allow it. So can you give me any suggestion? Thank you very much.
It's a very specific application level question. So anyone of you want to take this?
Yeah,
right.
The legal aspect I'll leave it up to you, and that's the local jurisdiction. But you got to consider multiple things when you're looking at a platform and which blockchain, whether public or private. Even if you look at public, if you take some of the more public ones, you take Bitcoin, Ethereum, and things like that, you also need to know the time lag and other aspects. For every transaction process, there's also a cost that you have to pay. So you need to know that from a technology perspective and then decide. Well, the second thing is jurisdiction. Yes, you can also launch your own blockchain and a private network because this data doesn't need to go elsewhere. Also, if it's a closed loop of lenders and borrowers, they can stay within a certain network. Now, again, you got to weigh the pros and cons from a technology perspective. You go with a public blockchain and there are millions of users already out there, which means you have easy access to your user. Your user base can grow very fast because you can tap them with your service. But if you're looking at providing within a closed network or let's say within a certain region, then you can also consider a private network which will be much faster, easier to implement, and you can fine-tune it to exactly what you want. Not to mention perhaps cheaper.
Mr. Du?
From legal perspective, I think that there are too many issues now. If you provide that peer-to-peer lending services, and you can be considered as a banking activities, in that case it should be compliant with the regulation law and regulation banking laws and regulations. However, if you create that environment under the civil law, it means that it's up to two persons to provide lending. So in that case, you have to